free also to keep in touch with Amit and, of course, with myself, Don Taylor, after the presentation. If you are able to, via all the details we're going to give you at the end. I'm just going to pass you over now to the person you're actually come here to listen to, which is Amit Garg, taking us through the idea of implementing tablets for learning. Amit, over to you.
Thanks, Don. I normally fret when somebody says, I'm an expert in tablet learning or something. The world these days is so fast. Things change every day. I really don't believe anybody can be an expert. So I think we're all together possibly more knowledgeable than any one person. Let's see what we have today here. This is my second presentation at LSG, and I remember from my last time, the chat is normally very, very vibrant. So I'll rely on your exceptional expertise, Don, to filter and skim that into concrete things that are emerging for me to answer.
A pleasure.
Brilliant. Okay, so welcome, and thank you very much for joining on this session on implementing tablets for learning. I'll quickly get started. I'll give you just a very quick background about Upside Learning, which I represent. It's a company that was started in 2004 in India, and today serves about 165 clients in 13 different countries. As you can see across the world, we now have 4 offices in US, UK, India, and Australia. So yeah, I think we're drawing on our experience of working with so many clients around the world, and some of that is also being reflected in examples that I shared with you today. We move on with the presentation with a poll first. Are you using tablets in your company? And of course, Don has put in tables there, teams.
I'm opening the poll up, and people can just go ahead and vote with that, and then we'll broadcast the results shortly. And I should be clear, Armin, when you're talking about do you use tablets, you're simply asking, are you using them for anything? Yes, it's not just for learning. Is that right?
Yeah, just using tablets in the organization. Essentially have the tablets come inside your enterprise.
Of course,
and that's tablets, not tables.
Yeah, we don't have an option here for no, we're not using them, which perhaps we should have added, but it's possible not to vote. Okay, let's just end the poll and share the results.
That's huge.
Okay. So just to share the results with everybody, it looks like the vast majority of people are we've got 116 people online. The vast majority of them, 75, are actually, 75% of people are using tablets right now. So does that surprise you, Amit?
It does to some extent, because none of the research really projects that kind of number. But maybe the crowd that we have here is slightly different, maybe from different organizations.
Sure.
But yes, overall the numbers of the adoption is slightly lower than that. But yes, that's very surprising and very good.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next one.
What are you using the tablets for? And this would be interesting. And I should say, if you're using it for something else other than business functions, sales support, performance support, or compliance training, then please do let us know in the chat area. And Andrew Jacobs has asked the questions, are people including bring your own device? So that's when people bring their own devices. Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, Amit, you can answer that question. Are you including people bring their own devices as part of this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. No? Okay, I think I'm going to end the poll now, Amit, because we've got a lot to get through. But again, an interesting, very interesting mixture of results there, which looks like Andrew would like to multi-select from the poll. Fair enough. Yes, of course, you can use for more than one. I suppose the question should have been, what are you most using tablets for? But the answers there are clear, Amit, isn't it? Business function wins hands down.
Perfect. This is more on expected lines. Great. Thank you so much. Let's quickly move on. Agenda for today has been broken into just 3 main parts, which is one group of understanding about tablets and tablet e-learning. So what is e-learning on tablets and why should we consider it? And the second group is implementation, which is where we're going to invest most of our time. So I'll try and put about 15 minutes for the first one and the rest, or the first block, and the rest for the second one. Let's begin with what is a tablet itself. I think most people know this as a tablet. It's pretty much defined the category of tablet since it was launched. It was cruising along till the time smaller tablets from Android came along, and that forced Apple to come out with iPad mini. But then newer forms of tablets are emerging, hybrids in particular from Windows, and there is, of course, rumors that even Apple will come out with some sort of hybrid tablets soon. And then there are multi-people tablets, larger than 20, 25-inch screens, where multiple people can collaborate with each other and work on projects simultaneously, or things, sketching, drawing. If you just think of applications that maybe you might be using at home, but there are applications that work as well. But then the key point here is the tablet is not restricted just to iPads and Androids. We're going to see different forms of tablets in the enterprise. I personally like the hybrid Windows tablets most, because they could really be adopted very soon in the enterprise. Of course, they need to get their act together, and hopefully next year we will see a lot of Windows hybrid tablets in the enterprise. There's been a survey which clearly indicates that almost 1/3 of CIOs are willing to go on to the Windows hybrid tablets rather than picking up iPad PCs as their organization device. Now, how do we use tablets? Just to understand tablets a little better, this is research from Google, which was titled Multi-Device World, where they were looking at how do we use different devices, when, etc., and how do we sequence them exactly. What really came out was context drives the device choice, which is quite makes sense. If you have short time, you are at a bus stop, etc., you won't pull out your laptop and start working there. So the context is really defined by the time you have on hand, the goal you are trying to accomplish, the location you are in, and the attitude that you have at that point of time. So that's really what Google suggested in that report which came out last year. And in that report was also contained this, which said tablets keep us entertained. So they obviously were comparing between tablets, smartphones, and computers. And for the computers, they said they keep us productive, smartphones keep us connected, while tablets keep us entertained. Now that's something which has actually changed over the last year or so. Recently at the Gartner Symposium, Eric Schmidt from Google said, it looks to us like the majority of enterprise computing is being done on mobile devices, in particular on tablets. Now that's quite a bit of change in about a year and a half, not really long time, and it also just kind of gives us a second data point. We just had the survey where about 75% people are already having tablets in the enterprise, and this just reaffirms that. There's another two research that I have. One is from Adobe, where comparing tablets and smartphone users, you find that reading books is happening on tablets, but not on smartphones, as you would imagine. At the same time, this is from Nielsen, where they're comparing again smartphone versus tablet use, while the searching of store location is happening more on smartphones, which is the top one. The other two which have been highlighted are essentially purchases that are being done on mobile devices. So more purchases are being done. Purchase decisions are finally being made on tablets, much more than the smartphones, both for digital as well as non-digital goods. Essentially, that points out to you can do more deeper, longer, complex tasks on tablets compared to smartphones. Even reading books requires bigger area, and you feel more comfortable reading it on tablets. What is e-learning on tablets then? It is understood what is tablets. We've defined e-learning on tablets as this, and so obviously we're going beyond maybe your preconceived notion of e-learning of tablets, and I'll try and explain all of this. We say any learning or performance support provided or accessed via tablets. So essentially it is just in case, just in time, push as well as pull, all of those elements, if you're doing that through tablets, that should be classified as e-learning on tablets. Now, the first question that comes up whenever you start talking about e-learning on tablets is, isn't it mobile learning? Sure it is if you're doing certain things on tablets. But if you're doing certain other things on tablets, maybe it is not. So let's say e-learning and m-learning are, to me, let's say two extremes. Let's imagine they are the two extremes of what different kinds of these m-learning, e-learning, etc. is. To me, tablet learning really is somewhere in between, and it would be more towards e-learning if you were delivering simple courses like you were delivering on desktops. So it would be more e-learning on tablets. If you are doing augmented reality and using unique features of the device to give context-sensitive learning, that would be more towards m-learning. So tablets are those devices which can actually give you both kinds of learning. It's up to you what you are really delivering. In this context, and this debate has been had on internet as well many times, I find this destination or argument from Clark Quinn very compelling, where he says, if your mobile solution isn't doing something unique because of where or when you are, if it is not doing something unique to the context, it is not m-learning. So just by saying that we are delivering some sort of learning on tablets, it won't become m-learning. But at the same time, if you were, if you can just imagine now, if you were moving tablets more towards the e-learning side and delivering just a standard e-learning, that would probably be e-learning on tablets. If you were delivering more context-aware, location-sensitive, using device capabilities, that sort of solution, that will be definitely more towards m-learning. Okay, then why should we really be looking at doing any e-learning on tablets? I'll start with this argument, and it should make perfect sense now that because tablet learning really fits between m-learning and e-learning, we're looking at m-learning as our end objective, and we say m-learning is the future of workplace learning. And why do we say that? I'll present some data points for you. The per capita smartphone penetration is now more than that of PCs. Internet access on mobiles is more than that from PCs. Web design is moving to mobile first because internet access itself is more from mobile devices. Information access is instant via mobile, which is impacting the way work itself is done, how much information you really hold in your head. Work for a lot of people, because they are themselves mobile workers, is becoming what they do rather than where they go. Millennials are entering the workforce and bringing in new expectations, especially on how information and knowledge is created, shared inside an enterprise. And informal, performance support, embedded learning, all are getting enabled by mobile. So these are some of the things which are really pointing towards where the whole L&D and workplace learning is moving. In my view, it is definitely mobile. And we have a full webinar that was recorded a few months ago. If you wish to look at that, that's available online, and which is on this topic. But let's move ahead. So why are we discussing tablets if mobile is really the future of workplace learning? I have a few specific reasons why. Number one, tablets are really the fastest growing mobile device category ever. In the first 5 quarters, they have grown compared to all other devices from the date of their launch to a very significant level. With this growth, now they have reached a level where they are going to overtake the PC sales, which is very significant. PCs have been around for so many years, tablets for just about 3 years, 4 years, and they are now overtaking PC sales. They are literally a game changer. With the abstract layer of mouse and a keyboard gone, they are essentially letting anyone practically use a tablet. So you can have people on the shop floor Even kids use tablets. You don't have to really train them. And they're also a game changer because they are bringing out now new kind of paradigms of computing. Even for expert users, people who have been using computers for a long time, the paradigm is really changing with new forms of tablets. Also, they are already in the workplace. I mean, we don't really need to rely on this survey. Our survey itself says that about 75% organizations have tablets. And as I just mentioned about Eric Schmidt talking about most computing shifting to tablets. So they're already there in the enterprise. The most important reason for us, as I just said, our end objective is really mobile learning, is to let tablets work as bridge to move from e-learning to m-learning. Now we've been in this business for some time, and we've been trying to get people onto m-learning, but we've really found it difficult that organizations are not able to move to m-learning very smoothly. There are too many constraints for them to really take care of. Not a single person can really get all the approvals and buy-in of all kinds, etc. Cost might be high in some cases, but tablets or e-learning on tablets could be that vehicle with which you can possibly start making a move from pure e-learning to m-learning. Okay, so let's start with the implementation aspects of e-learning on tablets. A quick question: if you have, or because there are so many people who are already using tablets, what would be the difference between developing e-learning on tablets and developing e-learning on desktops?
And I have to say, Amit, this is not so much a poll where we ask people questions and they choose. It's a straightforward question. What is the development? What are the differences between development in these two platforms? And we've got 129 people online. I'm sure amongst the 129 people there must be a couple with a strong opinion on this. And instantly, while that comes out, Andy Wooler made an interesting point earlier, Amit, about sales figures for PCs and tablets not perhaps being equivalent, but we'll come back to that later on when we get Q&A. Some thoughts already coming through. Andrew's pointing out that screen size, of course, is an issue when you're designing for anything that's mobile. And Sally says accessibility, and of course Adam talks about it depends how you interact with the device. Input's much more of an issue, so Stella, drilling down to it, is different from learning. It's a different kind of learning altogether. And Mike just thinks, look, I think it's got a long way to go on tablets compared with what you can do on desktops. There are a few options on tablets, says David, and the business about interaction is coming out more and more. Martin expresses it as the big fat finger problem. But Kelly's saying many of my students like flexibility with location. So a mixed bag of thoughts there. Claire says very clearly, not everyone's got a tablet, so obviously that's a consideration as well. Tell us about development on tablets being different from developing for desktops, and people, please keep your thoughts going. I'll be collecting any thoughts and conversations that come up to throw at Amit for his reflection later on. Amit, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, clearly, thanks for sharing so many thoughts. Yes, I think the input mechanism is different. Voice can be used. Development is different. Screen sizes are different. Even development tools are different. Situations in which you will use them is different. So quite a few things. Hopefully, we've covered most of them in the next few slides. But we'll be happy to take any questions that remain unanswered. Okay, I've divided this into 5 key sections, which is high-level decisions, design, development, testing, compliance, and distribution. Let's go straight into high-level decisions. The first thing that you need to decide on is BYOD. Strangely, that's something that's, as a term itself, bring your own device. BYOD did not exist a few years ago, and now it is so important, so very important, because mobile devices are entering the workplace. Every organization needs to decide on that. The survey that I presented earlier, which was about 36% people using tablets more for their business use, done by Computing Magazine in the UK last year, Also mentioned that some of them are actually using without any policy or permission. So you never know, your people might already be using mobile devices without having a policy. Interestingly, Gartner predicts that by 2017, 50% of organizations will actually demand that you bring your own device. So they will not give it as an option, but there would be possibly a demand. It's maybe the changing nature of the work itself. We're all becoming mobile workers, maybe work agents, not really employees, and how it is shifting. Maybe the preferences are changing and IT policies are getting aligned in that direction. But that's what Gartner predicts, that by 2017, 50% organizations will actually demand that you get your own device to work, and they will not be providing devices. The moment you think of BYOD policy, the first thing that comes on your mind is security. Who owns the devices, and most importantly, the security of data. And clearly the solution is in MDM or MAM solutions, and there are a whole lot around there. Some of them are available as SaaS solutions, some of them are not. Some of them allow for remote wiping of stuff. Others don't. But essentially, it is your IT department who would be the most knowledgeable, and they would be able to take a call on this. But yes, the moment you get into BYOD, you need to look at an MDM kind of a solution. The next thing to think of is the type of solutions that you're going to create. And again, if you can keep the continuum or the extremes of e-learning and m-learning in mind, the first solution is really very close to e-learning, or rather actually e-learning that you have been delivering on desktops. If you can just enable that content which is already available, or any new content that you create it with tools which can help it deliver also on tablets, you would typically get what we call as traditional e-learning for tablets. It is no different than what you have been doing, just that the technology is different in which it has been created, because the iOS devices, as everybody knows, don't support Flash. So you could go for enablement of your existing solutions, or you can go for creation of new solutions. Just keep the technology in mind so that you get the right solutions which work on tablets. But this is the leftmost side, which is e-learning, as much as you were doing on desktops. The second one is really moving a little ahead and saying multi-device e-learning, which could be responsive or adaptive in its development. And essentially what you're trying to say here is whatever we create should be available on multiple devices. And when we say multiple devices, we are essentially going beyond desktops and tablets to mobile devices. If you're creating something like that, it typically works well for domains like compliance and mandatory training, because especially your mobile workforce is difficult to catch when they have to complete some compliance training, and you want them to somehow complete the courses, whatever device they do it on, even if it is a mobile device. Or you can create adaptive solutions which presents device-sensitive content. So it could be content, assuming that the context in which those devices are being used are different. So you might be using a tablet when you have slightly more time, so you can possibly complete a 10-minute or a 15-minute module. But whenever you are accessing it on a mobile device, you may assume that they are essentially using it as a reference check. So it might be a summary, it might be a checklist. So it depends on how you want to create, but that's a solution that's available which lets you leverage mobile devices with the same e-learning that you're creating for desktops and laptops and even tablets. The third solution is really around app-based, which is you could create native or hybrid apps, but essentially in situations when you want offline availability and richer experience. So if downloading is a problem or network connectivity would not be there when the learners are actually going to use that solution, it's best to create it in an app. Interestingly, there was this report from ComScore, I think, which said the people who are using apps are 4 times more engaged than the people who are using the same content in a web format through a web browser. So there is something interesting about that. If you want to create higher level of engagement and the content is of that kind and suits the purpose, you may want to think about apps. But again, the critical factor here is offline availability and richer experience. Cost, of course, is slightly higher in these solutions, especially if you are targeting multiple platforms. You can go for cross-platform development, but yes, cost is definitely higher than the web-based solutions. And the last one, which in terms of development could be done in all the three modes that I just presented. It could be traditional, it could be responsive, it could be even app-based. But essentially why I'm putting it as a fourth one is because this is really where learning and work merge. And I personally believe that's really the direction in which most organizations would want to go, is that merge learning inside work itself so that it impacts performance every time it is somebody is doing work. The performance is excellent. So learning is essentially supporting the work to happen. Here is an example from Emirates Airlines, the application called KIS, which allows their staff to check who are the crew members flying with them. It also allows them to interact with customers, to note their preferences, or to offer an upgrade using their reward miles, etc. And even to log any issues that the crew faces during a flight, so that the managers can look at them at the end of the flight or maybe the next day. So essentially it's a data capture tool as well. Essentially you're building that narration of whatever happened in the flight into the application itself, which is the work device. Now to these four types, which are essentially the broad categories that we classify e-learning on tablets in, you can add several components. Like this one, which is adding expert directories. There's a button at the top, which if you click on it, it expands like this and you have access to experts in that domain instantly. Now, it is not something that is uniquely to be done for tablets. It could have been done even for desktop e-learning. But just that, with tablet devices, probably it's becoming easier because you would be carrying those devices more often with you and it's easier to open those when you have that moment of inspiration or something strikes, etc. But that's just a simple example of that. It can be done with tablet e-learning as well. Another example is and this is again embedded in work, it's almost like a performance support guide. What is happening in this example, and this is done by an organization for the US Defense Forces. The example that they have shown on the web is not for the actual equipment, but it's close to the equipment that they have actually done it for. But what is being done in this video, and I do recommend that you go and check this out on the web, the equipment is actually showing by animation what the learner has to do. So there is a superimposition of the actual equipment through the camera, and then on top of it, there is this tools that are telling him what to do. Once he does that, it moves them to the next step. So which is in real time, letting you perform a role and also monitors how well you're doing it. Or it could be very simple like this, which is again using devices capabilities, the camera, to scan a code, launch a URL, and give you a video which is very specific to how do you use that particular product. In this case, a cleaning agent, the bottle which contains the QR code or which has the QR code on it, that can be scanned and you can launch that video. So those are essentially the type of solutions that you may want to think about, and all of them really will influence how you go about the whole design and development.
Amit, sorry to stop you in full flow there. We just had a question which we do have to pull up because we assume things sometimes. QR code, Matanat asks, what's a QR code? Normally I'd answer in text, but I think it's important for everyone to get a handle on what QR codes are. Can you just describe very quickly what they are?
Yeah, it's nothing like it's similar to a barcode, but a two-dimensional one in a square format, and there are printed squares and spaces, which obviously a QR code reader scans and reads and interprets. You can hide an address in that. You can hide a URL in that. You can hide information in that, like we have been doing for so many years in barcodes on different products.
Exactly. So you can contain a lot of information in one of these black and white squares, and you can scan it with a phone or anything else, often with your iPad or your tablet, and that can then take you on to another place, can't it? So that's what a QR code is. And I'm sorry, we should have made that clear. Amit, back to you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we move to the next section, which is design, which is, and within that, the first thing that I want to bring up is while content is still very, very, very important in e-learning, I believe with mobile learning, any sort of mobile learning, whether it is tablets or actual smaller phones, context is really the new king. So if we don't keep that in mind, everything else will, and nothing will work. So you can create the best looking solution, you can create the most expensive solution. If you've not kept the context in mind, it is bound to fail because the learners will just not use it. So again, reminding ourselves of the report that Google had on multi-device world, the context is what really drives device usage. So if you are creating something for tablets, you have to keep in mind when and in what situation would your learners be using that tablet, and hence what kind of a solution they should be given. So your users could be really sitting at their desk, in the office, and then it might just work well if you're giving them a traditional e-learning program. Or they might be in a bus or a train, or it might be a rushed thing. So you may want to give only 5-minute programs because you know that the kind of program that you are giving, they would be normally doing it when they are coming to office or going back home. So maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on what you analyze, your audience will typically have time, that kind of. Or they might be even hanging on an electric pole trying to resolve a problem. And you don't want to really give them a lengthy intro and this program is about this, welcome to this, you will learn this. You, in fact, don't even want to give an e-learning program here. You may have maybe a tablet, maybe a small tablet, maybe a phone, and ideally something that can be operated with one hand, maybe even better if it can be operated with audio. So if just with voice commands he can operate something and get help, that will be excellent. Otherwise he needs to come down and see something, then go up, etc. I don't know. But then context is really what will define the kind of solution that you want to provide to anyone. Obviously, if you're looking at tablets, you need to touch enable, which is the first aspect of M enablement. If you are even looking at your legacy e-learning, you need to make it touch enabled. You need to research and at least get knowledgeable on how do we hold our devices, and so what will be the most comfortable areas to place all the buttons and navigation, the most used areas of your program. So typically e-learning, if you're on the left side, more towards traditional e-learning, something like this would work very well because you would be using landscape mode. Again, tablets are really meant to be touched and explored. People feel very comfortable by expanding things and pinching and zooming on a tablet. It's so comfortable. It's just a normal human gesture. So it's easier to do those things. If you could create exploratory solutions, normally people get more engaged with that. If you can, like just as an example, this is a app for Toyota Yaris launch. You could obviously click each of these. If you notice, there are two menu bars or navigation wheels, one at the top above the car and one at the bottom. So in the section that we are in, you can have 5 different sections. Within that, subsections, which is the front view, etc., etc. And you can obviously rotate the wheel at the top as well. If you go inside any of those items, you can see more information. You can rotate the car, which again, it just feels very nice because the way it would work. You can have videos. So if you notice, a different selection has come at the top navigation panel. Or you can compare cars. So you can compare with other cars. Again, an exploratory solution is something that would work very well in something like this. No, Toyota is not paying us anything. All right. Other things. Unique affordances is something that you should really think of, like this one, which we showed, where we are using the camera. Even if it is a simple thing like just accessing a URL by scanning a QR code with the camera, It just makes a lot of difference, makes it so much easier. Just imagine the kind of staff that would be using this solution. For them, it is much easier to just scan and get the link rather than type it in and maybe open the document, get the link, and then type it in, etc. Again, when you're creating solutions, especially towards the traditional e-learning side or the traditional tablet e-learning side, you are keeping both the desktops as well as tablets in mind. So you need to write instructions in such a way that it is talking to both the audiences. So you're not writing tab here or click here, rather than select or find or choose, etc. So essentially more around task rather than interaction specific. And audio syncing is something that you need to be cautious about. With HTML solutions, audio syncing may not be very perfect. There's no timeline in HTML solutions, so it doesn't work out very well. It is, so you can have syncing, but loose syncing. So you need to design your solutions keeping that in mind. If you really need very tightly synced audio, you need to convert that piece into video and provide a player for that. Okay, let's move on to the development aspect. Of course, three most common tools known for HTML e-learning development, and of course they all three advertise themselves very heavily for developing e-learning on tablets: Captivate, Articulate, Storyline, and Lectora. You can also do in native HTML with CSS and JavaScript. We have our own tool called Fred, which is an internal framework, but then I'm sure most development companies would have some sort of a framework which speeds up their development. Now, we've done this because it helps us create responsive e-learning faster. I'm sure most other companies would have it or would come out with something like this so that it helps development, as I said. If you're doing cross-platform development, you can use PhoneGap, Titanium, even Adobe Air. Some of the most common tools that you can use for creating e-learning for tablets. Aspect ratio is an important point that you need to keep in mind. If you are especially going for BYOD, people will come with different devices. Here, what I've shown is the device on the left is the Samsung Galaxy Tab, and on the right is the iPad. If you can see, the height or the amount that the Galaxy Tab shows is much lesser than what the iPad shows. So your e-learning will also have a similar experience. So you may want to, design appropriately. Either the menu bar holds at one place, or you make it responsive so that it is displayed differently. So your breakpoints are considered appropriately. Font sizes is another area that you need to keep in mind. Smaller the device, the bigger the font size. That's really the general rule, because they pack more pixels. The higher pixel density the device has, the bigger font size you need to go for. So like these two, the same solution, having the same font size, that is how it looks on tablets. But if I were to increase the font size, that is how it will look, which will be more readable. So the moment you increase font sizes on smaller devices, that will become more readable. You can't really have the same font size that you were using on desktop. Also, better to go with web-safe fonts, especially for your HTML projects, which are being played through the web, because not all devices will have all fonts. And like what's been shown here, your handwritten style that you had chosen would come out like this if the font that you wanted was not available on the device. So it's best to go for the web-safe fonts, and that's easily searchable on Google. Again, if you're doing native development, you need to look at the standard icons and the visuals that the users are very comfortable with, and sometimes they could be even conflicting. So if you look at the last or the second last one, which is most recent, so the left icon is for most recent on iOS, and the right icon is Add to Queue, which is playlist on Android. So there is obviously sometimes slightly conflicting icons that both of these platforms have. But then again, if you're doing native development, you need to be very careful about the icons that you're using. They need to fall in the same guidelines that those users are very used to. Again, layout, as I said earlier as well, landscape is probably the best till you are using or giving traditional e-learning. If you're doing anything else, then the context possibly takes over, and you need to define how will they be holding the tablet. If they're going to hold the tablet in one hand, in a portrait mode, that's how you need to design it then. The screen area on tablets is quite large. You would want to use that area to give split view. In this case, it doesn't look like a split view, but the left side, which is the blue part, is one, and the right side is another. So you click on one part, the one which is shaded in yellow, that would open up a set of things, and you click the next one. So it's almost like a menu that's available. But what it does is it prevents a lot of back and forth on between pages. And because it's an HTML page, you don't have to really then send this message again and again to the server. So this is for animations. Don, I need to get to the video.
Okay, so if you just, do you want to just explain as I get the presenter desktop sharing pod available, do you just want to explain the point? And it's after we've all seen animation, so why is this one important, Amit?
Yeah, okay. So the point is that animations in HTML, we have three different types of animations that we are trying to explain. And I'll just play this and then come back to. Okay, that's it.
Okay, I'll pull that to one side and we'll get back to the presentation. Okay.
So essentially then, what we're saying here is, and the next few slides will explain the others, we are dividing animations into three different types. One is animations like these, which are rich and you have characters, so you have lots of nuances to be taken care of, and this still is not very easy to do in native HTML. So this has been done in Flash and converted to MP4 video and embedded in HTML. Now things like these will work well till you want them to be non-interactive. The second type of animation would be where you really want them to be interactive, but again they cannot be so rich. So this was just a slide for the video. I'll move on to the next slide. Yeah, something like this, and this is just an animation that I've cut and put in here. It won't play here because it needs to be linked and there are some services that need to come in. But it's a simpler animation where just the three plants actually grow into plants from seeds. And that's not very, very complex. Something like this is definitely possible through SVG animations. And you can also add interactions in these. And the third type is really through what we call sprite sheets. Now, if you see this character in the program, and on the left side is a sprite sheet for this character, which is all the various actions he would be making in this program. So he's like the program guide who's appearing on most screens and then saying something and moving his hands, etc. And all of those actions have been captured in this sprite sheet. Now, this essentially for any repetitive animations like these, you can use sprite sheets, which reduces the load of requests to the server, and it makes the experience much better. So in animations, we typically look at three different types of styles. One is through sprite sheets, the second is SVG animations, and the third is through videos developed in Flash itself, but then converted to MP4. We've also used the sprite sheet successfully in creating layouts in terms of navigation, because the same buttons are used again and again across the pages. If you put it in a sprite sheet, it just helps in reducing requests to the server, and everything is available. Otherwise, the rollover or the next state, it sometimes takes a little time to come back, and it gives you a little bit of a flicker there, which doesn't look very nice. In terms of interactivity, we need to create things which are large and spaced out, because again, people, thumb sizes will matter and finger sizes will be different for people. So yes, this and this one. So even the ones which have been closed, the blocks, if you touch them, they are still large enough. If you are adding new types of gestures, and largely you would do that in native solutions or apps, you need to have some sort of a quick tutorial or cues on how to do that. You also want to present an optimized version, which is what we call as Minified version. So this is the two boxes that are shown are just the script for the menu, which has been highlighted. And the Minified version actually reduces all the information that is useful for humans, but not for computer. Because computer can understand the Minified version, we can't, because it just, garbles the code to some extent. But it reduces the size to almost half, and that could be a matter of good and bad performance on mobile devices on weak connections. Video, again, depending on the type of devices you're supporting, it's best to just support one aspect ratio, whichever is the maximum, in terms of proportion that you have, the different devices that you have. It will give you bands at the top or on sides, but doesn't matter. Just to keep optimized files, it's best to just have one aspect ratio. Moving on to testing and compliance. Again, here we need to keep in mind that if we are doing e-learning development for tablets and also delivering the same on browsers, testing on tablets is not such a big issue. It's the browsers on PCs that create an issue, and especially the older versions of IE. So some of the slides, next few slides that I show is essentially what IE can do to your programs, especially HTML programs when you're trying to play those programs on lower versions of IE. Like in this one, the buttons have been cut off on the left screenshot, the social buttons. On this one, if you see, there are the buttons have been completely missed in IE in the navigation pane in the bottom, and at the top there has been a space that has been left out. In this one, again, alignment issues. The white background box has moved in IE lower version from the place it should have been to another place between 1 and 2. Gradients of any kind are not possible in lower versions of IE. Curves are not possible in lower versions of IE. Shadow is not possible, and multiple columns are not possible. So essentially, just giving you a quick view of what are the issues that you will face with browsers. So how do you go about doing testing? Emulators and simulators are available, and they are very good for developers because they can quickly check how it is working out and not everybody will have a device to check it. While they're doing all the development on a PC, they have to check it on a tablet. Now, even for testing, they do a fair job, but there are these 3 or 4 key constraints that come in. Like you cannot do the user interactions that you have to do on a tablet, which is pinching, zooming, scrolling. You can't do it it just does not give you that same experience there. Issues like battery life and how does it impact performance, that again cannot be measured through a simulator. Performance testing itself, like loading time, etc., because simulating bandwidth, etc., and also the device capabilities is not possible because they in effect use the actual PC's device capabilities. As in, they may have a graphics card which might be more powerful than the one that you have on a tablet, maybe, and hence it is not giving you an exact reflection of how the program is going to function on actual devices. And there have been issues on consistency of results across devices through simulators. So there are a couple of solutions that are available, especially for multi-browser testing. We've been using Browser Stack sometimes, which works quite well. It's a web-based service, and it gives you almost all browsers that you need, and that works well. If you have to do multi-platform testing, Adobe Inspect is a good solution. Again, you need to own all of these devices or at least hire them for testing, and that could be a little challenge for some organizations. Also costly as well. So you may be better off, if you don't have a regular need for these, you may be better off just to outsource that part, which is testing on multiple devices. And then compliance. I can see we are now beginning to just touch our time. Compliance, again, SCORM AICC is exactly the way you were doing for desktop e-learning. If it is through the web, if your LMS works on the tablets, it should work fine. If you are doing it in the offline mode, you need to create some sort of an offline player which can store the data while you are offline and then connect back and send that data back to the LMS when you get online. Same thing, the offline player is also a close replica of how the native apps work, because they store the data even when you are not online, and that can then be sent back to the servers. Tin Can, again, if your LMS is Tin Can appliance, you can easily do that through a player or even an online mode. So I think compliance is really not that big an issue with tablet e-learning. Distribution, this is important, especially when you start getting down the path of doing some serious e-learning on tablets and not just the traditional e-learning. So of course, till you're doing traditional e-learning, you just need an LMS like you have been using for many years. It needs to be compatible with the tablet population that you're looking at. Or if you want offline capability, then you need an offline player. Or you could go for public app stores, which is for everything else apart from your web-based learning. So whether it is native apps or other kind of apps that you're creating. So you can go to Apple Store or Google Play or whichever. But then there are multiple stores. I think one of the solutions that people are liking more now in enterprises, especially who are now serious about delivering apps to their employees, are private app stores, where the benefit they get is they can have platform apps. So you can have on the same app store iOS apps and Android apps and BlackBerry apps and Windows apps. So you don't have to really put it on 4 different platforms. It is almost immediate upload and updates, because if anybody has experienced how you upload on Apple's App Store, it might sometimes take 7 days, sometimes 21 days to just approve that app until that time. So if you have any change in the app, every time you have a change, you need to wait for those 7 to 21 days. And that could not really be a very comfortable situation for a business. It also allows consolidated payments, so none of your employees have to really deal with that. It also gives you MDM functionality. Not all of them, but some of them give you that, which is quite handy then. You don't have to really go for a separate MDM. It also allows you to create portals or department-wise zones. So people from a certain department will have access to only certain types of apps. So sales people will only see these 5 apps, production people will see these 5 apps, etc. And you can have user feedback and ratings. So you can have feedback from your colleagues, which makes it so much easier and more important to understand which app is of use to me. And otherwise, if you go to public app store, there could be thousands of apps for one particular thing. And you really don't know which one is real feedback, which one is paid feedback, and all of that goes on.
Amit, we are close to time, and we have a question about MDM. So could you just quickly explain MDM to Lowry, and then skip on to the next deck, and then next slide, and then perhaps we can put your contact details up.
This is actually the last slide. So MDM is a mobile device management solution, which essentially what it does is allows you to have devices in the company's portfolio. So you first profile devices and only allow those devices which have been added to your MDM solution to have access to your business applications or apps. So what it gives you apart from that is access controls and even remote wipes. So let's say if you lose those devices, some of these MDM solutions allow you to remotely wipe the data or stop access to those specific applications on those devices, essentially protecting all the data that you have.
Very good, thank you.
The last thing on this slide is tracking usage. And of course, apart from Google Play and Apple's App Store, you have several other private app stores that you can be looking at. And that's it.
I'm laughing, Amit, because I don't think we've ever had such a comprehensive, content-rich presentation before. And as DRS says, really interesting. I get the feeling Amit could carry on for a few more hours here. So do I. And you know what? I wouldn't mind it at all. I think it would be a fabulous way to spend a couple of hours, because we could learn so much. You were very humble at the beginning, Amit, saying that you weren't sure that anybody was really an expert, and we're all experts today. I think we can say without fear of contradiction that you are an expert in this field. I'm just going to put up the resources that we've generated during the course. So that's on this slide here, and hopefully you can read that. Amit's, I'm going to put Amit's Twitter handle at the top, which is Amit. Yeah, Garg Amit 100. Okay, let's just put that at the top. Amit, you'll be delighted to know, is on a list of movers and shakers And he's so am I, for that matter. The URL is at the top there. I think if you've enjoyed this, you could show your appreciation by clicking that top URL in that list of resources on the left-hand side and going and voting for him. I think he's at number 5 and I'm at number 10 on this list of 100 people or so on. I agree with Vaughan here that it is great when you have a speaker who is so passionate about their subject, not only passionate, but also extremely knowledgeable. And Teresa, I've got to agree, the most informative and most useful any learning you've done this year. Tell you what, I agree. Absolutely exemplary webinar. Of course, Amit, I've got a long list of questions I have to throw at you. We don't have time to deal with them, I'm afraid. It's 11 o'clock and I need to now turn things around to get the next presentation up. But look, just look at the comments area and you'll see everyone coming past saying thanks. If you've oh, sorry, thank you for correcting my my spelling there. If you've enjoyed the session, everybody, please do let the because that will tell the world about it on Twitter. And just a quick chance to remind you that everything will be available afterwards. And everyone was saying during the course of that, I can't keep notes. Can you help us? Yes, you can. www.learningandskillsgroup.com. Everything will be available there. Actually, I'm going to get this slide deck up for tomorrow morning, so it'll be available tomorrow morning. The URL is right at the bottom of the resources list here, the webinar archive. So you just go there and you'll find the slides up there tomorrow. The recording takes longer. That will be added probably Monday. Next webinars, goodness me, at 12 o'clock, we've got Stephen Walsh with another fantastic information-packed webinar coming up, 10 Trends for Learning in 2014, but it's not the regular sort of, oh, this is going to be big or that's going to be big. It's really quite thought-provoking stuff. Then we go quiet for Christmas and for Learning Technologies, and we're back on the 13th of February. Please put it in your diaries. Of course, I hope to see as many people as possible at Learning Technologies, either at the conference upstairs where I am, or downstairs on the exhibition floor, or perhaps in the pub afterwards. So please look forward to seeing you at 12 o'clock at Learning Technologies, and I hope to on the 13th of February for our next webinar and the last of the year. It's a suitable way to wrap the year up with Stephen Walsh of City and Guilds, Kineo, talking about trends for 2014. In the meantime, thanks to the 129 people who joined us today. Everybody, your participation was fantastic. And thanks once again, Amit Garg of Upside Learning, for information-packed, and this is the key word for me, really useful presentation. Thanks on behalf of everybody here today, Amit.
Thanks, Don. Thanks. Bye-bye.